Okay, are we ready? All right, episode 8. We have Mr. Nick Dametto, MP, member for Hitchenbook. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Yeah.
It really is. Thank you for coming.
Gentlemen, the pleasure is all mine.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So here's a question I have for you. I actually told a few people that I was going to be interviewing you today, and no one had a bad thing to say about you. So you're a poly, so how does that work? Why does everyone like you?
Mate, I kind of break the mould, I guess, where I work hard. It's about putting the people first. And, you know, if anyone asks me, what's it like being a member of Parliament? Well, if you want to do the job right, it's literally the height of public service. You basically marry the electorate. I remember during the election campaign, there was actually a forum up in Ingham, up at the Kelly Theatre, my hometown. And one of the questions I was asked was, Nick, the electorate office actually for Hitchenbook is smack bang geographically in the middle of the electorate in Ingham, my little hometown. I live in Townsville though, so I live 400 metres in the Hitchenbook electorate. I'm in the northern beaches there of Townsville. And the lady said, Nick, if you do move if you become the member for Hitchenbook, would you move the electorate office to Townsville? Obviously that's where you live, and that's bulk of the people, 60% of the electorate live in that sort of area. And I thought to myself, geez, this is political suicide moving this the electorate office. So what I said was, sorry to my wife. Obviously, I'm going to be spending more time in Ingham, and Mum, you still got a house in Ingham, so I'll be spending more time with you. I haven't really discussed this with anyone, but that's the decision. So just putting the people first before yourself is probably a part of the success.
Wow. So you got like I guess what you would probably consider a blue collar work background, for some of the things you've done.
Yeah.
So you obviously know the industry in terms of like agriculture as well as manufacturing, all those things, like the people where it's where we make things with our hands, right? And the question is why would you want to get into politics? Like, well, I know that's probably a very generic, broad question, but it's something to address in terms of where you're at now from where you were. So why?
It's an excellent question, and the reality is I think the best people in politics never wanted to be in politics in the first place. They're obviously tapped on the shoulder at some stage, or someone dragged them into it. My background's mining and construction. I'm a mechanical fitter / boiler maker by trade. Did a few years in electrical and refrigeration as well, so pretty rounded when it comes to the trade skills. Spent 10 years in the mining industry, came back from Western Australia after doing 4-on-1s up there for nearly 3 years, and started a small business, started a tourism business based here in Townsville. And out of the blue, I got a tap on the shoulder from Bob Catter, the Honourable Bob Catter, member for Kennedy. And he said, Nick, we've had a look at your background. We think you'd be great for Hitchenbook. You know, you've worked at the sugar mill. Your father and your grandfather worked in the agriculture industry, within the sugar industry. You've had your hands dirty there. Spent some time in mining. Think you'd be perfect for the job, and had a crack at small business. And my first response was, probably not, Bob?
Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Was it a phone call? Was it a phone call? Was it a meeting? Or
Well, it was initially a phone call out of the blue, and it was anyone that knows Bob Catter, it was actually the shortest conversation you will ever have with him. Was, Nick, got a job opportunity for you. Haven't really got a lot of information right now. Someone will call you in a couple of days, and he hung up.
Wow.
And it happened so quickly.
Yeah. What was running through your mind after that conversation?
Well, when you're running a small business, things come across your desk all the time, and you're always coming up with your own crazy ideas on how to better the thing you're working on. And I was having, I was cooking dinner with my wife that night, cooking crumb steak and some raviolis, as good Italians do every night. And
sounds like a good dinner.
That does sound pretty good.
Yeah, good for the waistline. And my wife said, "Oh, what happened today?" And I told her the story of Bob Catter calling, and she said, "Well, was it Bob?" I said, "No, might have been one of the lads just pulling me leg, right?" Goes,
It'd be a good accent to pull off, though, wouldn't it? He's got a unique voice.
Bob Catter here.
Yeah.
Anyway, 2 days later, I got a phone call from his chief of staff. Said, "Nick, Bob wants to meet you in the Qantas Club on a Sunday night on his way to Canberra." I thought that was odd, but now that I've done the role for 6 years of a state member, I realise your time's limited. Literally, your time's limited when you're MP. You meet with people whenever you can. Bob asked me the question, would you like to run for Hitchenbook? And I said, probably not, Bob. I'm having a good time at the moment. And I've just did 10 years in mining and construction. I'm spending time with the family, running my own small business, and we'll probably leave it at that. 2 days later, I took a phone call from Robbie Catter. He said, Nick, I'm in town. And I'd kind of already made my mind up, because it sort of, it sat with me for a couple of days, and I thought to myself, geez, I've been asked to do something that I didn't think I was even capable of, or, even had a chance to do. And, we all have a sit around, having a cup of coffee or a beer with our mates in the afternoon, talking about all the things that's wrong with the world, right? And I thought, geez, if I don't take this opportunity, I don't get the chance to ever whinge again, do I? Right? Yeah. Wow. So sat down with Robbie, and he said, Nick, what do you reckon? And I said, oh, mate, ask me a few questions. Let's go through the process here. And he said, Nick, what do you think of Dad? And I said, mate...
I like that he actually says, what do you think of Dad?
What do you think of Dad? and I said, I just took a minute to think about it because it's an important question to answer. And I said,
don't say anything bad.
And I said, Robbie, I've got one just like him. He's in Cairns. Wow. I'm in Townsville. That means there's 400 kilometres between us on a daily basis, and it's the perfect distance for us to have a flourishing relationship. We're on the phone a couple of times a day, but yeah, that distance really is making things work. And he said, I've never had anyone describe my father like that. But he said, I think I get you.
No, that's awesome. So in terms of when you made the decision to actually go ahead, and now that you've done it for quite some time, just an interesting question in terms of the dynamics of being a politician, in terms of work-life balance. So being a former business owner, all that. Yep. I'm a business owner in town as well. Getting that right is always difficult, no matter what industry it is. Is it more difficult being an MP to get that work-life balance? You're traveling a lot, all that stuff?
It's difficult if you care about the job and you care about what you're trying to achieve. If you're just a brick in a wall with, say, a major party, or you're in it for the wrong reasons, it's kind of like small business. It's very similar. The more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. Yeah. You can do bugger all in your own small business, but don't complain while you're eating, baked beans every night for dinner. And why is this not working out for me? Same as being a politician or being a member of parliament. The more you put in, the more positive things you get to deliver for your electorate, the more effective you are out there. And if you are like me right now, trying to build a small major party into a moderate or a major party at some stage of the career or the party's progression, you've got to go and put a lot of work in. Yeah, and getting that work-life balance. I spent in September 3 weeks in Italy. It was actually the first holiday I took in six years. And
really?
My wife basically said, we turned 40 this year, you turned 40 in September. If you don't take me to Italy, I'm going alone and you're paying. So, was
it good?
It was brilliant, but same thing though, I'm the kind of person that doesn't like to disconnect. I like to be connected. I like to know what's going on.
Well, the fact that you were willing, just to come onto here, because we're a small podcast, that was really, really cool. It was very humbling as well, So it was really, 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 thank you for that, because it gives us an insight into, the inner workings of a politician, a local member as well. So the question I have for you, and I think you probably know where I'm going with this, the number one issue at the moment in town, without a shadow of a doubt, is crime, right? It's ridiculous. And I'll just tell you this. Last night at the complex that I work at in South Townsville, they stole a $40,000 boat. They got an underground clicker, went underground the car park, secure car park, took a stolen car, it's all on footage, put the trailer, the boat trailer on the back, and just took the boat right out. They're getting really bold.
And brazen and violent.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to care who their next victim is. Yep. You're right. I can't walk into a cafe, bar, or restaurant now, or anywhere in Townsville for that fact, without talking about crime. It's the first thing people want to talk to you about. And what I have noticed, though, over the last probably 6 months, is things really ratcheting up. And the fact is, if you've got nothing in the legislation to deter these young criminals or even adult criminals right now for committing these crimes, well, if there's nothing to deter them.
Okay, so just real quick, I just want to push back a little bit. When we talk about nothing legislation, like, are you saying that they can just break a law and the legislation isn't given the appropriate? Is it a legislative issue or is it a judicial issue? And the reason I ask is I had a mate that recently was in QCAT, and there was a lady that was just out of jail, got into a fight, punched a copper, and she got a suspended sentence. Didn't even go to jail, right? So is that because of the judge, or is that because the laws aren't there to allow the judges to make the right decision?
It's an excellent question because, the reality is if you're a magistrate, you've got a fair bit of latitude, right?
Yeah.
To make a decision on if that person, whether they're guilty or not first, but also you've got a latitude when it comes to sentencing. Now, for the Youth Justice Act, for example, we'll step away from adult legislation right now, criminal legislation, but for the Youth Justice Act, it actually reads in there, detention must be a last resort. So essentially, the magistrate has to cite the legislation and stick to the legislation when sentencing and sticking to the sentencing principles. So if that was removed, the magistrate could go a lot harder, a lot quicker. But if, say, young Johnny's comes through and it's even if it's his second or third time in front of the magistrate for unlawful use of a motor vehicle, but the magistrate still hasn't put him through a diversionary program or restorative justice or all these other options that are available, then he has got no other choice but to make sure he goes through one of those programs first before incarceration.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So which party at the moment is trying to amend that? Like, is it a wise thing to do to try and actually get that removed in terms of a last resort? So, because these kids are just doing multiple things, like 3 or 4 times, they're getting arrested and they get back out on the street. So, like, is that the impediment that's stopping from actually our society to action on this, or is it a legislative thing?
Yeah. So if you make the legislation or write legislation, if you write legislation which is black and white, there's no room for latitude. Then the magistrate has to stick to that, right? There's been a couple of things that the KAP has actually introduced into Parliament. That was actually removing detention as a last resort. We put that as an amendment.
So you guys did that?
We've done that.
So who opposed that?
Here's the interesting part. Riddle me this. The Labor Party opposed it, and so did the Liberal National Party.
Okay, so just real quick here. All right, so
and it's one of their policies right now.
So let's just make this clear. So we've got the 2 major parties, right?
Yes.
Because there is an interesting trend, especially post-COVID, okay, where people see the left and the right, or the Liberals and the Labor, as 2 sides of the same coin, okay?
2 wings, 1 bird.
So right now, if you're in North Queensland, the KAP is trying to remove that line in the Act, so that it empowers judges to stop these criminals, right?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And just to make it clear, Liberal National parties, the Conservative Party, right, and Labor opposed it. Correct. When did that actually happen?
At the start of this term, when the Labor Party first tried to amend the Youth Justice Act, it was amended. It was put in as an amendment by the member for Traeger, Mr. Robbie Catter. Yeah. And like I said, it was voted down by both sides of the House.
All right. So I'm going to talk to the camera. So guys, if you're a local and you're watching this and you're voting the next election, and crime's the biggest issue in town, if you're voting in the next election for the Liberals or the Labor Party, you need to keep in mind they oppose this.
Yep.
Keep this in mind. They oppose. You've heard it first here from the horse's mouth, so to speak, that they opposed it. It was a good amendment to make so that we can make our society safer, and they opposed it. Just a lesson, because I'll tell you one thing I'm really sick of.
Yep.
I'm really sick of the status quo. I'm sick of it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's why I do like what you're doing here. I do like there's some minority parties out there that just want to get out and affect change in the community.
Genuinely fix problems.
Yeah.
You know,
unbelievable.
And it blows my mind too when you can have a party that will actually sit there and oppose the amendment as it's coming through the House, yet then create a policy around it and then spruik it in front of the media for the next 3 years. You think to yourself, what planet am I on here? And it just goes to show, if you can tell a story enough, it becomes truth, doesn't it?
Wow.
Okay, so in terms of legislative, getting that removed, what else would you want to put in place in order to try and make the streets safer and put these criminals behind jail?
So there's another 3 things that so legislatively, we introduced an amendment to make mandatory sentencing for unlawful use of a motor vehicle for the 3rd conviction.
Yeah, 3 strikes.
3 strikes.
Yeah.
12 months mandatory sentencing.
Cool.
And the reason, and once again, that was voted down as well by both major parties.
They voted that down as well.
Both voted it down.
Do they have to give a reason why they voted it down?
Not at all. Not at all.
Do they tell you? Like, do you go up to these guys and be like, "Why are you against this?"
You know, when you ask that question, they say, Nick, it's just something that we haven't discussed or got across in our party yet." And there's a million excuses.
So
right?
you get fobbed off.
You get fobbed off. Okay. You get fobbed off. The reason we want mandatory sentencing, 12 months for unlawful use of a motor vehicle, because the KAP's flagship policy is relocation sentencing. We want to send these kids to a Western location for their detention period, where they're there for a period of 12 months. It could be a cattle station, it could be a detention centre built specifically for this purpose. We've even ear-tagged and talked to the state government about places like Urandangi, for example. It's a little no one lives there in our town. There's probably about 10 people that may live there on the new Northern Territory Queensland border. It's in the middle of nowhere. The last thing that was operating there was the pub. The Queensland government owns the rest of the buildings there, the school, the teachers' quarters, that sort of stuff. They could purchase the pub and the freehold land for the whole town for about $500,000. Water, sewage, gazetted roads, power. You could send 30, 40 kids out there in a relocation sentencing program for 12 months to try and turn these lives around. But also give Townsville residents reprieve.
100%.
I've never seen one person steal a car or break into your house while they're locked up.
Yeah, that's true.
Or removed.
100%.
Okay. One thing I'm hearing at the moment, and I don't know if it's even true, right? And so it'd be great to get your opinion on it. Is they're saying like the youth detention centre at Cleveland is full.
It is.
And there's nowhere to put these kids.
That's right.
So
They're on watch houses, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, they're allowed to keep them in watch
So
houses longer now.
this option, so is anyone even talking about building a bigger youth detention? Is that somewhat like politically incorrect to say? Is it what are the, besides the relocation option, which seems the most viable, maybe the most cost effective, right?
Yeah, right.
As opposed to building a new prison, which maybe might offend people, be going like, we shouldn't be creating institutional criminals and all that stuff. But the bottom line is we shouldn't have to suffer while the government figures it out. So are they suggesting anything, the government at the moment, to fix this? What are their suggestions?
So the state government came out about 12 months ago with their flagship plan to build 2 new detention centres, one up near Cairns and one down near Brisbane. I sit on the Education, Employment and Training Committee. During the committee process, during estimates this year, we're able to actually ask the ministers questions. And we've got Di Farmer, who's the current Youth Justice Minister, some pointed questions, direct to the point. How much is this thing going to cost up in Cairns, and when are you going to start it? And the 2 things we were able to find out through that line of questioning was there's no budget allocated to this. There's no money allocated to this, and they've got a pie in the sky plan to start around 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, 2024 is the state election, right? October 26th, that's burnt into the back of my mind right now, that date. But the reality is you've got a party saying, we're going to fix your problems if we're re-elected and halfway through the next term.
Okay, so yeah, they're really doing nothing about
Nothing.
it.
Zero
Nothing.
zilch.
And they haven't budgeted for it. Okay. So yeah, they're doing nothing.
Yeah.
So is there any other parties, minority parties at all, independent MPs that are willing to go alongside what you're suggesting?
We certainly do. So we've got the independent member for Noosa on site at the moment, Sandy Bolton. We've also got a good working relationship with Stephen Andrews. He's the One Nation member for Morani. Good bloke.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Obviously, the other crossbench members are Amy and Michael from the Greens down in Brisbane.
Yeah.
They don't want to lock any kids up, the Greens. They want to actually raise the age of criminal consent to 14. Wow. They've got some pretty crazy sort of views on this sort of stuff. And I get where they're coming from, they don't want to see little children locked up, et cetera, but we've got 10-year-olds breaking into people's houses with screwdrivers, knives, and...
It's funny you say that. I want to show you something. So my wife has the South Townsville Community Hub. It's about 1,500 people on that page, and they all have to be verified that they live on site, right? And just to give you a snapshot, this is just in the last few days, right?
Yeah.
Right here. Like, let's see. Wait, where are we?
It's a beautiful loaf.
She's baking good bread at the moment. She really is.
Yeah. She breaks the bread, you bring home the bacon. Oh, man.
So, like, you'll see here, people are complaining, posting things on a regular basis. On here, it says here, what was it? Something about 3 kids try to steal Ute Perkins. This was a few days ago. One as young as 10, tall and skinny, long hair, broke into a car without keys. So it's like everything you're saying, people are talking about, right? And
It's all
so
people are talking about.
yeah, because I had a lady come
It's such
into
a
my
high
business.
frequency, and it's such, like I said, it's getting violent and more frequent.
Here's the other thing I want to mention. I had a lady come in to my business, and she told me that she was here because she was visiting her brother, who was basically in like some type of aged care facility, because he was robbed and he cracked his head on the ground, right?
Yeah.
And so he's not all with it now. He's got some brain damage and all those things. And, you know,
Lucky to be alive.
Yeah, well, but this is what she says. The tragic part is, says, yes, he's lucky to be alive, but he's not living because he's not fully, I guess, cognitive. And his
Quality of life has been completely destroyed.
Yep. And so there's no, I guess, justice for that family, and it's sad to hear. But here's the thing. With all the stuff happening on Facebook each day, right, something's happening every day, right?
By the minute. It's minute updates.
The bulletin's not publishing. They're not actually reporting on it, because if they did, there'd be a panic in town.
That's right. That's right.
So how does that work in terms of, I mean, legacy media and the papers and all like that? Why aren't they publishing these stories on a daily basis?
Yeah, well, you know, I think what's happening at the moment, because there's so much happening on a daily basis, they can't publish everything. You know, there's got to be a balance as well. I even find it from my perspective as a member of parliament that runs a Facebook page and communicates with the electorate, you know, if I talk about crime all day, those people that need a hand in the agriculture industry be going, Nick, why aren't you talking about the rats in my sugarcane right now, or the commercial fishing industry? And we've been pretty vocal on that at the moment as well. I've got tourism operators that are going, hey Nick, while you're talking about crime, you're not talking about how beautiful Hitchenbook Island is and how people should come and visit this. So I guess from people out there trying to put a message out, there needs to be some balance.
Fair enough. That's fair.
That's
really fair.
Because I know myself, if I don't put enough stuff on Facebook about crime, people start getting into me about why aren't you posting enough about crime. As soon as I put too much crime, you've got people messaging. So you've got to have that balance.
That's why you need them marketing people.
I wish I had a marketing team, but I run my own Facebook page.
Do you?
Yeah,
you do all that?
Awesome. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I've got obviously I've got a media advisor and a policy advisor that help me on a number of topics, mainly with spelling and grammar. I'm a basic fitter and boilermaker at the end of the day, right? But at the same time, just getting that messaging right, but also reporting enough and things so both sides of the bread are buttered.
Yeah. Well, I guess in terms,
like that.
So we don't hammer on too much about crime, and I think you've summed it all up. Would it be fair for me to say this, that the government is not offering any solutions, right? Both the Liberals and the Labours, National Party, they have voted against a good chance to actually affect change in the community and do something about the crime. What you guys suggested, they vote against it. And any plan that the government has provided is a really, let's forget about it, irrelevant, because it's down the track. They haven't a budget for it. And if they win, it's 2 years into their term.
The only thing they did do was raise the victim payout.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's it.
I'd rather we didn't have victims,
literally.
to be fair. And we've got to remind people it was only for victims of heinous crimes and people that have been assaulted and stuff like that, not property crimes.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so bottom line is, when it comes to the next election, the only thing that can be said is look to the people that are actually trying to affect change, right? Such as yourself.
This guy, right?
So forget about the major parties. They don't care about you.
Yeah.
They don't. And if you're in Townsville, in North Queensland, they don't care about you.
No.
Would that be unreasonable to say in terms of crime?
The two major parties are interested in one thing. That's being in government.
Okay.
That's what they're interested right now. The minor parties and particularly the KAP, which I work with and am happy to be a part of, we're trying to fix problems.
Yeah.
So I just say, people have been saying to me for ages, how do we fix this? I said, well, we've tried our best to get the state government, the current state Labor government, to agree to amendments and changes. They've turned us down. People are saying, well, we've got to change the government. And I said, well, yeah, but I'd be making sure that opposition leader right now is committing to a bit more than some motherhood statements before you put a tick in his box. Now, if someone's coming up with a good policy and a solution that you agree with, consider a one in their box.
Yeah, cool.
I think that's fair. All right, well, if we put the crime issue to bed for now, what would be the second thing in terms of that needs the most attention for
Cost
you at
of
the
living.
moment?
Cost of living.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, there is not anyone, it doesn't matter if you're a business owner right now, you're struggling with input costs at the moment for your business, all the way through to, someone that's, struggling to put food on the table. Cost of living is affecting everyone. With the rise of inflation and the rise of, day-to-day products that we all consume, it's putting strain and stress on every budget. Doesn't matter if it's the local fish and chip shop all the way down to a single mum trying to live on a pension at the moment.
But Woolworths and Coles are raking it in billions.
Record.
Yeah, they're doing well. They're doing very well. They always do well.
Yeah, $5 billion a piece, I think they profiteered last year.
Yeah, it's what happens when you're a duopoly. But I'll say this. I'm glad you bring up the inflation, right? Now, the government tells me, right, that because I'm buying too many bananas and apples and spending money around the place, I'm the cause of CPI increase and the inflation, right? It's my fault. But really, if you look at what happened during COVID, it's a terrible situation, right? Bottom line is they decided to shut down the economy, right? And so they printed billions.
I'm so glad that you're saying this. You're probably the smartest person on the planet right now. I felt like I've been the only one bringing this up.
Okay, so they printed billions. They printed billions. And so that is the result of a decision that they made, which turns out probably wasn't the best decision to make, okay? Yes, everyone was scared at the start, but then, at least Queensland didn't react as badly as what Victoria did in terms of lockdowns. Nonetheless, the result of those printing of billions of dollars is massive record inflation, right? How am I to blame for that?
You're not.
Okay.
And it's so interesting. I just remember when the restrictions started coming in, North Queenslanders were even affected by that 50K limit. You weren't allowed to go further than 50 Ks in your vehicle. You had to have a reason to leave the home. I thought to myself, geez, it's going to be like Walking Dead stuff soon. Lock yourselves in the house. There's going to be someone coming through your front door trying to steal your bloody loaf of bread I thought that's exactly where we're going to go. People aren't going to be able to work. Where's the money going to come from? And next minute, out of the bloody blue, Scott Morrison out-Labor's Labor with a policy that just basically, let's just throw cash at everyone right now. And what they did, they didn't just print money, it was worse than that. They borrowed money. They borrowed money and they didn't have to tell Australians where it came from. We still don't know.
Wow.
So they borrowed nearly $1 trillion.
That's insane.
And guess what? They started pumping it into the economy, whether it was payments for people to stay home, through to road projects and infrastructure projects that didn't need to happen, but they needed to start people working again. So they tripped, all this government money which they borrowed, which you and I have got to pay back at some stage. They dropped that into the equation, into the economy, and of course there's going to be more cash around, and of course things are going to go up in price because what happens? You've got people that have got money that didn't have money 5 minutes ago. They start buying stuff. There becomes a shortage of products. Those products go up.
Basic economics,
supply
right?
and demand, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the banks go, well, hang on a sec. And this is my theory right now, that Australia's never going to pay that money back. The government is never going to pay that money back in our lifetime. Maybe our grandchildren or their grandchildren's lifetime. But the banks have gone, hang on a sec, we've got to try and soak some of that cash up. How do you soak that up? You raise interest rates. And we're all paying for that stupid decision that happened during COVID.
Well, there's a lot of
fiscal policy that failed Queenslanders and Australians during the last federal...
It's so good to hear you talk about this because really inflation is a hidden tax. Yep. And that's how we are all paying for that increase right now. Here's the thing. Seems like everyone's suffering a little bit with inflation. It's now starting to affect the employment numbers and GDP, right?
Yes.
So here's the dilemma. The one thing in the RBA's economic weaponry, so to speak, the only thing that they can do, which is they do in every economic downturn, is drop interest rates.
Yes.
Right? So right now there's a battle to get inflation sub 5%. Right? We wanted to get back to 2 or 3% where it used to be, but it's impossible because of the $1 trillion,
That's
right?
That's right.
So they have to normalise at 5%. But guess what? Even though I think Brisbane inflation came in at 5.2, right, for this fiscal year. And what's happening now, banks are starting to talk about dropping interest rates first or second quarter next year.
Yep.
Okay? If they drop interest rates and start to stimulate within 5% inflation, it's going to get worse, right?
It is going to get worse. And, I think another thing that the banks actually did, which I think was a bad call, was drop the interest rates as low as they were. because you've got people that jumped into the market and were buying things that they couldn't afford when the interest rates were low. As interest rates have increased, obviously now that's put stress on the home budget, the personal budget, the home budget, and all of a sudden you've got people that are doing it tough. No wonder they're going to do it tough. You know, that I've got a lot of friends my age and younger that went out and bought their first home, you know, $600,000-$700,000, and I thought, geez,
wow.
Hasn't property gone up in Townsville, right?
Yeah. And I said to myself, you're spending $600,000 or $700,000. How much are you borrowing? Oh, 90% of it. I nearly fell off my bloody chair. I fell off my horse almost. When you borrow that much money, you've got to look at, you can pay it off, but what's the interest? And what's the interest if that goes up, which it did, 2 or 3%?
They're getting smashed. So, we're the younger generation. So, next question. It's going to be it's a loaded one, all right? Bitcoin. Do you like it?
No. I got in on it.
Oh, we got a Bitcoiner here. How good's this?
Well, no. I need to tell you the true story here. So I got in and bought a Bitcoin when they were about $4,000, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's 2017. But about $4,000. Anyway, long story short, I got up to about 4 Bitcoins by buying and selling and trading at the time. And what I ended up doing is I got elected to bloody to Parliament. So you don't have time to bloody sit there, hour trading on that sort of stuff. Because to do it right, you've got to be really on the money. That's what I find anyway. Otherwise, you can sit and forget for some of that stuff. But for me, the way I was doing well was, literally
day trading.
Day trading, hour
It's
trading.
63,000.
There you go.
63,000 a coin.
Yep. So I made the mistake in selling my Bitcoin for what it was at the time. At $4,000 or $5,000 a pop.
Yeah. Well, guess what? You know what? In terms of investment, right? I found out about Bitcoin in 2012.
There you go.
Had the opportunity to buy 3,000 coins. Right? Because I was like, I don't know what they were. It was really, really small. But I know it was 3,000 coins. Now, here's the thing. I didn't know how to buy them because I didn't know what was going on in Bitcoin mine. I didn't understand, but I wanted in on it, right? Even if I did buy it, I never would have had the balls to hold on to it.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
If I bought them at $2, I would have gone, $20, done, beautiful. There's the guy that bought a pizza for 10,000 coins. And there's
my God.
it's like $500 million, $600 million,
Yeah.
So I guess in terms of investment,
It's all relevant, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got to have a real unbelievable investment business acumen to learn to hold that long anyway. But no one can predict the price.
Or just be willing to ride it out.
But it is an interesting inflation indicator.
It certainly
is.
I remember when I first learned about Bitcoin, I was working over in WA at the time, and my mate said, "You've got to get some of these Bitcoins." I said, "Why? What are you doing with me?" He goes, "Oh, that's why I'm buying me illegal stuff online with." I said, "I'm not buying anything illegal online, mate, so I don't really need Bitcoins." He goes, "Yeah, that's what everyone's using them for." I'm like, fine. And that was the last I heard of it. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years later, it was starting to take off. Like, geez,
they're going to do an ETF soon, so we're talking trillions of dollars flowing into it. So it's just interesting because I brought it up because of inflation, right?
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's immoral to work your life, save your money, right? So when my grandmother passed away a few years ago, we did find 20, 25 grand in old cash notes, old bank notes, like the old ones, right? Yeah. And, she worked her ass off for that, right? And the bottom line is yes, that got devalued over time. But if she invested in the gold or silver or property, whatever, she would have been protected by inflation. But she didn't have the knowledge to put the old school was just keep the cash under the bed, right? And so the bottom line is that that is ripped away. Your blood, sweat, and tears is ripped away from inflation, and people don't get that.
So what I want to remind everyone is, if you're going to invest in anything, if you're going to buy anything that's going to appreciate in value, the only way for anything to appreciate is create scarcity. That's why Bitcoin goes up. There's only a certain amount of Bitcoins out there in the whatever this thing is.
Yeah, in the
ether, right? Same as property. There's only so many blocks of land on the planet. There's only so many, whatever it is. If you can find something that's people are running out of, it has to go up in value, right?
Yeah.
Where cash, money, currency can be printed and it can be devalued overnight. It actually can have a line put through it if a government decides to or the World Bank decides to overnight. So careful with cash.
What do you think about the idea of a balanced budget? like you can only spend
Yeah.
what you bring in. Like
Yeah,
you're
no,
a business owner. I'd love to spend more than what I bring in. I'm a business owner, but I can't do that.
There's two ways of looking at that. I always have lived within my means, and I've always been of the opinion if I'm going to buy something that's going to appreciate in value, I'm happy to take a loan out on it, especially if it's appreciating in value more than the interest that I'm paying on it, correct? But if I'm buying something that's going to devalue through a loan, a jet ski, for example, jet ski almost halves in price once you wheel it off the trailer for the first time. I wouldn't get a loan out for that. You pay cash. Always say, pay cash for your toys if you can. If you can't afford to pay cash for your toys, it's not a toy. It's not something you need. That's a want, not a need. But things that are going to go up in value, make sure that you're making a sound investment. And like someone said to me the other day, Nick, I'm scared about getting into the property market as a young person. I said, I would be too, but I was scared at my age too when I was 22 when I bought my first house. Show me a property over the last 30 years that hasn't doubled in value.
Yeah. Bricks and mortar, for
Bricks
sure.
and mortar.
Dale's looking at maybe buying his first property next year. So
my advice to any young person...
mind you, unsolicited financial advice here. Okay.
No, this wasn't advice. No matter what you want to do, start early.
Yeah, cool.
The earlier you start, the earlier you get to finish. That's just my advice. Whether it's start a business, whether it's build something, whether it's buy a property and you need to pay it off. Yeah. Whatever you do, start early, and you'll be in your 40s and you'll be leaps and bounds ahead of your other mates in their 40s that are just starting.
I have to say, you're very with it. You're with the zeitgeist in terms of what's happening in the moment in the community. You know what's happening. It's very rare to have this in a politician. I really think it's amazing. I didn't know that you were so up to speed with these relevant topics. So it's really good. So the question is, I have for you, what's the end game for you? What do you want to see, like out of your career, out of this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That changes. That changes for everyone constantly. But for me, making sure that my family is doing well, my relationships are going well, and the people that are around me are doing well, that's success for me.
That's great.
So for me at the moment, that is, as a political leader, I guess, for Hitchenbook or someone that's, being voted in to be the voice of Hitchenbook, my whole goal right now is to make that place better. But in doing that, I've got other goals around me as well. I want to see the minor party that I'm with, Katter's Australian Party, grow. The way that I make Hitchenbook better is help more people become elected in other seats in Queensland so our political party has more clout, so that when I start for stuff in Hitchenbook, we can use that collateral of holding other seats to secure those things. But then it's bigger than that too. I don't just want to make Hitchenbook a better place. I want to make sure Queensland's a better place. And for me right now, there is a number of things that I think need to be changed, needs to be fixed. And unless you've got political clout down there in Brisbane, unless the North has a situation where they can control the parliament down there, we're going to continue to be treated as the poor cousin. And that's my...
Quite a large percentage of tax revenue goes to the southeast, right, as opposed to how much we can generate up here, right? In terms of
correct. You've got 73 seats out of the 93 seats in Queensland right now. 74 seats out of the 93 seats in Queensland are in the southeast corner.
Yeah, wow.
So you can understand why a lot of the decision making is made for those people that live in those Brisbane, sunny coast, Gold Coast areas. But the way that you can change the political outcome for North Queensland is pretty simple. You need to have enough people on the crossbench that can control the parliament. So whoever is in government hasn't got enough power to make decisions or pass legislation without the crossbench. And if the crossbench MPs are more based in North Queensland, then North Queensland does well.
That's awesome. Okay, well, how about this? To go to might be politically incorrect. We don't
love these ones.
We don't. We don't really care for those things too much. Political correctness, right? So I feel like we can ask you this in terms of like we are. I guess I'm of the opinion whether climate change is real or not, man-made climate change, because I saw what the scientific consensus did in COVID. It damaged itself irreparably in terms of the scientific consensus. We heard that a lot, and there was a lot of mistakes. And so right now with climate change, for years we've heard about scientific consensus. The ice caps were supposed to be melted by 2014. They couldn't even predict the flood that happened recently in Cairns, right?
Yep.
I find it if you can't tell me what's going to happen a week in the weather, I find it difficult to believe what's going to happen in 50 years, right? With that said, let's say climate change is real. Right now, we're paying ridiculous power prices, right? Because they're smashing us on our coal, right? The government's lifted the royalty tax, all those things. Yep. Okay, there's a whole variety of climate change red tape. Mind you, we emit less than 1% of global emissions. So no matter what we do...
1.3 to be correct.
Okay, 1.3. We there's nothing we can do, even if it is real, that we can do to change it. Yet, so what is your position in terms of the whole climate change thing and what's happening with power prices and all that?
You know, it's interesting. If you ever get a chance, you've got to get Professor Peter Ridd on your podcast here.
Awesome.
He's he lives in Townsville.
Oh, is that the guy at JCU that got the sack?
Correct. You need to get Peter Ridd.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Professor Peter Ridd, he is an absolute wealth of knowledge on this topic.
Do you know him?
I've sat on his back.
Give us a good word.
Yeah.
We'd love to interview him.
No, I'll give him a plug right now. Anyone who doesn't know him, please look up Professor Peter Ridd.
Can you tell the audience what actually happened to him?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, without getting myself in a legal battle here, my understanding is he challenged some of the stuff that was coming out of JCU. They've basically said, no, you can't do that. That's outside your contract. You can't, I'm just sort of putting this
just
in a nutshell here,
generalising
yeah. Yep. Basically, he was saying some of the stuff that was coming out from JCU was wrong from a scientific point of view. In terms of
climate data?
No, it was around the health of the Great Barrier Reef.
Ah, yes.
Yes. So we've seen a number of things, I've done a lot of work with Great Barrier Reef health, reef runoff, worked in that political space for the last 6 years, and there is a lot of stuff that Peter Ridd's been able to identify that indicates the things that they're saying to you in the nice glossy document that are hurting the Great Barrier Reef actually aren't.
Yeah.
And the reason he was able to actually say these things, he said, Nick, I was the guy who invented the devices to measure the nutrients in sediment runoff, and we weren't able to measure it in the pesticide runoff in parts of the Great Barrier Reef where they're saying right now it's hurting. So that's kind of the reason they got rid of him.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, it's funny, when you make a lot of sense, you turn into racist when it comes to the media.
Or a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Just a great way to discredit someone, especially if they invent stuff.
So in saying that, I remember the first conversation I ever had with Professor Peter Ridd. He said, Nick, we sat in a cafe down the Strand there, and he said, Nick, I'm going to start the conversation with, I'm probably the greenest person in this room. I got into reef science because I wanted to save the Great Barrier Reef. But what if I told you, out of the 5 things they're saying that is hurting the Great Barrier Reef, 3 of those aren't? And I can tell you they're not, because I'm the guy that was trying to find out if those 3 things were killing the reef.
Wow.
And he said the problem with all this is, if you start discrediting science, which is the benchmark of all our belief sets these days, right? If you start discrediting that and start diluting the truth around science, well then you start going back to the dark ages where people stop believing in the science because people are manufacturing science at the moment.
Okay. Stop speaking so much sense. I'm going to vote for you. Okay. This is really important, and I've actually hammered on this quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
People look. It's almost like the science has almost become like a religion.
It's replaced religion.
Yeah, and it's become a belief system. You don't believe in the science? Like, do you get how science works? You need conversation. You need discussion. You need debate. There's theory and then there's law, right? We need competing sets of data, competing opinions to find that it's through that competition of ideas and data that we actually get to an objective consensus.
Correct. So,
right? And you remove one side of the debate?
What are you left with?
It's the thing is that I tell a lot of people, and I think you've broached on it quite clearly, that morality, truth via consensus, it's very dangerous.
It most certainly is.
Because Hitler did the same thing.
Correct.
Hitler and Stalin, they made decisions based on majority and consensus.
If you can convince enough people that that's correct, then it is. I don't think that's the best way for science or anything to head down the road of.
Yeah, why can't they just put two scientists in a room like this, right? And it's funny, Joe Rogan on his podcast, whatever, they had these scientists that were willing to debate, but the establishment didn't want to debate them, right?
Yeah.
But isn't that how science is? Let's have a conversation, let's see what this Peter is saying, let's see what this other guy's saying, and let's see what makes sense.
Back to your original question, though, around electricity prices and renewables. I'm a real believer that the renewables shift was more about shifting wealth than actually doing something for the environment. That's my true belief. You've had people out there that have come up with this idea and they believed in it, and then I think a lot of the people that are investing in it right now are not investing in it because it's the best thing for the environment. I might be a little bit skeptical here, but a lot of people with a lot of money don't throw money at things because it's the right thing to do.
They want their money back.
They want their money back. So where's the investment? Where's the market shifting right now? So if people are being pushed away from coal and they're being told, hey guys, you jump on board. There's companies that would have never been able to afford to buy a coal-fired power station. But guess what? They've been able to invest in a solar farm, or they've been able to invest, your super fund money into a wind farm. Those sorts of things, that's where money is going right now because it's an easy place to put it. And the legislation is following the mindset right now of these people that believe that that's how they're going to save the planet.
It's interesting. I have a management rights business in town, and the guy that stayed with us, he was the guy that fixes the wind farms, what do you call them? Turbines, that's right. Yeah. So I was listening to him have a conversation. It was like 500 grand here, 700 grand there, all these things, and I was like,
plenty of money in it.
Right. It was crazy, right? Now I know this person, and so he was telling me, he was basically saying the trucks that are needed to do the repair works, because he was saying around once a month they get struck by lightning and they need repair works, right? The amount of fossil fuels that get spent, like petrol and oil, getting these trucks, major semis, road trains, getting things up there, new sort of turbines, all these things. It's crazy. If you measure the carbon output to maintain these things, it's redundant. So it's all virtue signaling.
The best way to make money is come up with a solution to a problem. But if you don't have a problem, you've got to come up with one. And then you can, especially if you come up with the solution before you come up with the problem.
Yeah. That's good business for the government.
It's great business for anyone that's trying to go into this renewables market.
How do we get a new coal-fired power station? Like, if you'd say does people have a heart attack in Parliament or something like that?
Oh yeah, there's that Conservative Party that that some voters look to in the LNP right now has got more left-leaning people in there than you can poke a stick at. They're not even talking at a state level about coal-fired power stations. Where you've got the KOP right now, not only talking about coal-fired power stations, but hey, let's do some nuclear.
That's what I was just going to say.
Let's get serious about this.
So clean.
If you're truly into decarbonisation while creating a grid out there that's sustainable, stable, and has system strength from a rotating generator, which you need to make AC power, which we all consume through our houses, you need to look at something that has a rotating generator. And if you're not using steam, hydro, or coal, nuclear is the only way to do it.
Look, nuclear, there's only one problem, Nick, is that it solves the problem. Okay, we can't do that.
Correct. You don't want to put these people out of business.
Oh man, I just hope people can see you talking here. I hope this podcast goes out to a few people just to see how you speak sense. You know what's going on. You know what's happening. There's this. You can actually see solutions there, but ultimately we need more numbers, right?
Correct.
You need more people. So there's never. So if we talk about a viable plan to get more people in Parliament that think like you, right? You said there's 73 seats in the southeast. Okay, now to form government, how many seats do they need?
Oh, geez,
so it's 90 something, so like 46 or whatever it is, 47, 50 seats, whatever the case may be. So how many seats are there in North Queensland, like outside southeast?
Yeah, so
you said there was 20 odd something, right?
So the best way to look at it is how many seats do you need to hold to control the parliament? And all but about 3 or 4 elections in the last probably 25 years, I think we did the maths. If you had 8 seats, on the crossbench, you would have controlled every parliament bar 1 or 2 in the last 25 years. So that's pretty good numbers.
So that's that balance of power thing.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So the KOP, we've launched 3 candidates so far in anticipation for the next election. We've got Bruce Logan up there in Cook at the moment. Look him up if you get a chance. We've got Clinton Hawkes. He's going to be running for Thurungara here in Townsville.
Oh, nice.
But also we've got Michael Pugh running for Mundingborough. We'll launch more candidates. And, what we do, we're a small party with a limited budget. But what we do is we go after target seats that we could actually win. We don't want to waste our money or people's time by running people in seats that are unwinnable because we actually have an objective here, and that's to control the parliament at some stage.
That's massive. Well, at least that's a plan. I mean, it's always good to speak, logical, reasonable things that you're saying, solutions, but to actually have a plan to try and get there. So the plan is to get to the balance of power. Is it a realistic option in terms of the next election? So when's the next election? 2024. When will they?
October the 26th.
October 26, 2024. So there's going to be, this is going to be a very divisive, a very, very powerful election coming up for sure.
Well, I think for anyone out there that's, whether they're dealing with crime right now, whether they're dealing with the cost of living, whether it's insurance prices all the way through to, the cost of a loaf of bread at the moment, if anyone's got any problems right now, health's another major issue that we're seeing across the north and delivery of health services in regional and rural Queensland. If anyone's having problems with anything in Queensland right now, they should be really having a good look at how they vote at the next state election, please. And people that are watching this podcast are most likely to be plugged into politics, I would hope. But please take the time, research the candidates, research the policies of the party. Have a look at the party's core values and principles. I know we do. We stick to them. Have a look at those if you're ever on the KOP website. If those things align with you, then have a good think about where you put your vote next.
100%. Wow. That makes sense.
Yep.
Oh,
Well, I'm not sure how much time you have available for today because I can keep talking to you all day.
I've got probably another 10 minutes.
Well, look, I think that's a good opportunity to wrap it up because you've said a lot of really interesting things. Do you have any questions at all?
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was really, really good. I really thank you for coming on because I think even though, as I said, there's a few hundred people that watch this, it's not massive, but most of them are local, right? And they're going to see a side to you that the media probably wouldn't show. Even though you're doing your social media stuff, which is awesome, you're very about the community, you're speaking sense. You really are.
Thank you.
And I think we're actually quite lucky to have someone like you in politics that knows what's going on, what's going on in the community, as well as the general sense of things in terms of inflation, Bitcoin, about what happened with COVID and climate change. You seem to be a representative of where the middle class is at the moment. They're pissed off. They want solutions. Right, and it seems like you have a very, very good opportunity to deliver them if you do get the vote. So I wish you the best. I really do.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
I'd really like to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. And, we live in one of the most beautiful parts of the world, North Queensland, Townsville. This place has so much to offer. But we've got some fundamental things we've got to fix politically. We talked about a number of things just then, the crime, the health, the making sure that the cost of living comes down. But I just want to remind people we are living in paradise. If you're watching this from around the world, check out Townsville, North Queensland. Check out Cairns. They're doing it tough right now. They've had some floods up there. They'll need a boost in their tourism industry. We've got Airlie Beach and the Whitsundays to the south of us. North Queensland, we've got a lot to offer up here. Yeah, we've got some political things to fix, but I implore people, please come and visit us up here. We're living in
awesome.
paradise.
How good's that?
100%.
That's awesome. All the best. God bless, Nick. Thank you.
God bless.